Hello. This video is a short introduction into the nature of the Gnostic and Pythagorean monad. Rather than jumping right into the progression from monad to dyad to triad, we are instead going to focus on the source of this tradition. Consider for a moment Roman numerals. The system was developed from the markings shepherds made on their staves for counting their sheep. Each line stood for one sheep, and while the fifth line was marked with a V, the 10th line was marked with an X. However, the system that is of interest to us followed a different course of development. The Greek word for calculate is seiphizo, which comes from the word for pebble. This reflects the roots of this alternative mathematical system. Rather than making markings on other surfaces, the system was concerned with using pebbles in order to keep track of specific amounts. So, for instance, a certain number of pebbles within a pouch was equal to the number of sheep in a flock. However, the system that we are concerned with, the monadic system, developed far beyond this simple early correspondence system. Eventually a school was formed which studied advanced calculations using pebbles. In time, this school rose in stature and the pebbles were replaced with pearls. And so arose an elite class of mathematicians whose fame and wisdom was exceeded only by the value of the pearls with which they made their calculations. At this stage of history, mathematics was a highly specialized skill. Within the Gospel of Luke, we find an advertisement for the services provided by these monadic mathematicians. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it, begin to mock him, saying, "This man began to build, and was not able to finish." Or what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and determine whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. Luke chapter 14, verses 28 through 32. I have set up a few items to provide a demonstration of the manner in which these pearl casters operated. We are going to deal with the situation where there is a king with an army of 10,000 versus another king with an army of 20,000. Rather than working with 30,000 pearls, the pearl caster would simplify matters so that each pearl represented 1,000 soldiers. This is a 10-pearl tower or tetrahedron, which represents the first king's army. This is how the pearls are fit together in order to form the structures. Each pearl is first anointed with balsam, which is resinous and quite sticky. The pearls are then placed, one by one, into a 20-sphere tetrahedron. This specific shape, the tetrahedron, is associated with war, and with the planet Mars. However, these two tetrahedrons, the first made from 10 pearls, which represents the first king's army, and the second of 20, for the army of the second king, form an entirely new shape when they're brought into contact with one another. The resulting shape is called the crystal, and it's associated with Mercury and communication. This specific shape is what indicates that the first king should send a delegation to the second, in order to ask for terms of peace. Note, however, that this isn't a question of numerology, because it isn't the number of pearls which is at issue, but rather the shape which the pearls form. It's these shapes and the significance attached to them that make up the core of the monadic philosophical system. We'll explore these shapes and their significance in an upcoming series of videos. At this point, however, we will deal with the downfall of the school. For some undetermined reason, this teaching fell into disfavor, and any who were found using this school's methods had their pearls destroyed before them, trampled beneath the feet of those sent to crush this movement. Do not give what is holy to dogs. Do not cast your pearls before swine. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. Matthew chapter 7, verse 6. What happens when a pearl is crushed? What are you left with? We're left with a white, chalky powder. In chemical terms, we have calcium carbonate. Technically, it's a salt. However, it's one without flavor. If salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled by men. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. Here we have salt without flavor trampled by men, while pigs, which represent men, trample pearls, resulting in a salt lacking saltiness. And what value has the salt without saltiness? Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for soil nor for manure. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Luke chapter 14, verses 34 and 35. Soil and manure. Once the movement's pearls were confiscated and destroyed, the powers that be believed that the movement had been destroyed as well. Not so. Instead, the movement went underground, where it continued to spread its teachings. However, rather than use pearls, the practitioners fashioned balls from earth, while at other times, animal dung was employed in their calculations. Plasticine is the preferred material for modern-day monadic practitioners.